all, let's start with some clarity as to, who is right or wrong here. The former president says that the House of Reps and the National Assembly determine their own salaries. The Senate says he's talking rubbish. What do you think is the truth?
The truth is what is coming from former President Olusegun Obasanjo. And the lie is basically what's coming from the senators. History will tell us that, and the person of the former president, I do not really think it's just a matter of old age where an elder went to bed, woke up and started saying things from out of nowhere. You would remember he ruled this country, as president for 8 years. And one thing that was characteristic of the senators at the time, I would say before they may have used the word, they matured out of what we would basically say doing things in front of the camera and then doing it behind closed doors. There was a time when matters of wardrobe allowance and all of that was a thing of the past. So he encountered those things, and knowing fully well we were heavily indebted, I think much as it lied within his executive power, he controlled a couple of things. And we cannot basically take the words of the senators to mean anything, because we know exactly what they do, especially to members that try to just be transparent, to the Nigerian public. So it's a clear case of one person saying the truth and then the other lying. And in this case, former President Olusegun Obasanjo is right. And basically, I can outrightly say to you, the senators are lying.
All right. There are a lot of questions to ask. So many, especially if we look at where to go to from here. What do you think is the way forward in order for Nigerians to at least put a nail to it and say, let's finally put this to rest? Is it possible for the members of the Senate, you name them, public office holders, to eventually publish and let Nigerians know that this is what we receive monthly? We do also recall that they are also running costs of various offices, looking at the law that actually governs this. We've seen the law of certain political and public judicial office holders, salary and allowances, an Amendment Act in 2008 that talks about receiving salaries and also receiving monies to run offices. So do you think that it's high time there should be some form of clarity, publicly publishing these salaries for Nigerians to see?
Frankly speaking, I think a lot of overhauling is needed as far as the Nigerian system is concerned. If that came, it's likely they would do so. But an example is you would find senators telling you their salary is just about 1 point something million, 800,000. Some will tell you 400,000 when they were in the Senate. But that basically is not where they make all of the money. Like you said, there is the cost of running their office, which basically is huge. And I think it's maybe close to 30 million or thereabout now. Only God knows exactly. And then their history is not that which anybody could seriously rely on, which means any senator in particular that grants an interview and attempts to speak of, in all sincerity, what he earns, what he makes, and all of that. I mean, we just saw what happened to Ndume. We equally saw how it went with the likes of Shehu Sani when they were in the Senate and all of that. So when you just say something, another one begins to accuse you. Yeah, when you go public and you say these things, you are crucifying us and all of that. So the effort they put in to basically keep their activities in the dark is suspicious. So even if there was room basically to make any publications, an example is the so-called constituency projects. While it's understandable that the whole of the money, which runs into hundreds of millions, may not be given to them directly, but who controls, who calls the shots, who determines who the contractor is, and then you sit and make your negotiations and all of that. So I think the best way to deal with that would begin from the man, in charge, the man occupying the presidency. Usually, you don't want anybody to stand in your way. And that basically is where the issue of letting them have their way comes. Because, you don't stay in my way and I don't stay in yours. So they get to do whatever. Yeah, they do exercise all of those powers, even though officially it's not as if they sit down and dictate all of those things, but indirectly they do it the very way they do with the the constituency project funds. So I think the best way to deal with this matter would be to have a president that has that mandate, that measure of legitimacy, where he could confront a lot of issues, even when it concerns the excesses of the legislative arm, without the fear of anything. But when we do have people that came in through a faulty process, and then secondly, it may be a long shot, but when we begin to get to a point where the Nigerian masses begin to report senators, because we don't see much of that happening. We know there was an attempt to impeach, or maybe they just impeach a sitting Senate president, or you hear rumors they want to impeach the president and all of that. But we haven't really gotten to the point of recalling these people who come to the green and red chambers and do whatever it is they want. So perhaps that may be the best way to check them. But in terms of saying we bring in policies where they publish this and publish that, of course, they've mastered how to go about it, and that wouldn't solve the problem.
Yeah. Just finally, if you can squeeze your thoughts into a minute. I saw that there's a report that was put out by the Vanguard that at the end of 2023, Nigeria would have spent about 2.618 trillion naira on the National Assembly since its inception in 1999. Almost 2.7 trillion naira on running the National Assembly. That is a humongous cost, on the Nigerian state. How possible is it, that we can reduce that cost? And are we majoring on the minor? Are we focusing on the wrong things when we talk about their salaries? Is that really the highest aspect of the National Assembly cost? Or are there other things running into hundreds of billions of naira that the Nigerian government must address to reduce the cost of running the National Assembly?
Yes, there are. An example is whatever it is they refer to as the cost of running their offices. To a large extent, I think it's uncalled for, because it's an insult on the, on common sense and the masses of Nigeria for someone to say his salary is 800,000 or 1 million, and then the cost of running his office, which is not his salary, is about 25 or 30 million naira. And then you are supposed to be, oh no, they don't really earn much because it's 800 or 1 million naira. What do they do with the 25 or 30 million or whatsoever it is they get? So that's quite unnecessary. And I think the bulk of that amount you mentioned, those trillions, I'd say 85 to 90% of them don't go anywhere other than pockets of those people. Now, that is one of the things that look like it's public. When you talk about those tiny little things that I think, I don't know whether it was deliberate or a mistake that Fabio was telling them they should check in their mails, that there was a little something for them for, the break. I think now nobody has an idea how much that is. I think Ndume was making reference to huge sums of money and all of that. So all of that goes, all of that amount of money, at least 85-90% of that money is being stolen. Because I think if the executive don't do anything, and then these humongous amounts actually go to whatever it is we refer to as constituency projects, we may not really care about, the executive, whether local government chairman does anything or the state governor does anything. So I think the bulk of that money is basically what goes to the so-called running of their office, which exactly what they do, you don't even know. The constituency projects, you don't know what they do with that. So that primarily is where the money goes. And then those heading committees and all of those tiny things. And then when you find a criminal that should actually be jailed, and then at the end of the day, it looks as if nothing happens. There are all of those corners that they cut, and people do not really know. So it's unfortunate. I would say to you, the bulk of that money basically goes into their pockets. That is just the truth of the matter.
All right.
And yes, I would repeat again, directly or indirectly, they actually fix whatever they make at the end of the day. It lies within their power. That's just it.
All right. Obviously, there needs to be an unbundling of the National Assembly, and it must come, from the top. Right. The revenue, the RMAFC. I struggle with, saying the full word. must also play a part, in this conversation. Zari Yusuf, thank you very much for starting your Monday morning with us. We look forward to more conversations with you.